Hello, my viewers, and welcome back to another episode of Pedantic Craft. So last episode, the first episode, we built that building all the way over there, and it turned out pretty good. But this time, we're going to focus more on some agricultural elements. So the plan for this episode is we're going to make a new field. I have these two here, but we're going to make another one right over here, I think. And probably a granary as well, or a granary, however you want to say it. But we'll get into the specifics about that later. The first task at hand, though, is figuring out exactly where we want this field to go. So, yeah, I think right here would be a nice spot, but it's a little lumpy. So we're going to try and flatten this out. And I just don't know at what level. If we bring back this land here a little bit, and then we'll do it on this level. So I'll fill in this area and flatten some over there. So let's get right to work. I have to craft up some shovels though. And you can just see my process. So as you can see, I just have some stone shovels. I don't use anything besides stone. Once I make a forge and some mines, then I will use iron, but past iron tools, I don't use that. Don't use diamond, don't use netherite, don't use anything like that. Alright, so now we have this big, nice open land right here. I'm actually going to clear all this grass away. So let me do that really quick. Alright, it's pretty much clean shaven now, so yeah, I'm gonna fill in from, around there, fill in all this, and tear down some of this land right here, flatten this out. I reckon we can turn this into a bit of a montage and have a little fun with this. So enjoy the music. Wow, what a sleep. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that little montage. Well, and here's the product. And all this grass is growing in quick. I wonder if that's sort of a new. Well, I don't know. It's a lot quicker than usual. But here we have it. Here's our land, our new land that we just made. And could you believe it? The raised area that was right here, almost exactly filled in this lowered area. I was short by 1 block of dirt to fill all this in. So this is great. We have our land, but as you can see in my, let me break in here. My fields, it's not just one big flat field, because that's not really how it works. And granted, how I do it isn't exactly how it works either. But I have these strips of coarse dirt in between sections of wheat or crops. And And this sort of imitates a furrow. So on a normal, you can kind of see on this here. Hold on. I have my pointer. Um, you can see these two uh, darker lines, and that sort of represents a furrow where the seeds go in a plant. So I just put in these larger tills so you can sort of see the direction of the farmland. With this here, I'm gonna go up on top of that house. So as you can see, this crop field has a definite direction. That these are the lines where it's plowed along, and this is the same way, just that way. So to achieve this look, though, you need coarse dirt, and I use coarse dirt to sort of trim out the edge, just to make it look more like, it's dirt. But in order to achieve that, you need uh, gravel. So, and I do not have like any gravel. I think I have, yep, 7 blocks of gravel. So I'm gonna need to go out and get some. So that's the next task, and probably make a few more shovels. That whole thing took probably 8 or 9 shovels, so I'm gonna have to make a couple more. I do thankfully have some backup dirt. This should be, well, we'll see if it's enough. I'm expecting that I'll have to get some more, but let's go find some gravel. I also want to say that I got one comment about this horse right here that I'm riding, and I don't remember the name of the person who suggested it, but they said Chadtholomew the Fourth is what I should name it. And oh, pause! Look at this forest fire. There's so many forest fires in this world. That's incredible. It's oh, well, that's not a forest fire, grass fire, but isn't that just incredible? So many in this world. Anyways, the person suggested Chadtholomew the Fourth, and I kind of have some issues with that name because he isn't the fourth. He's the first. He's the first horse that I have here. So naming him the fourth is sort of doesn't make a lot of sense. But the names Chad and Bartholomew individually are fine as well. I don't know why it has to be Chadtholomew. That's not really a real name. So I think I'm going to name him Bartholomew. You could say he's one of my apostles, so I think that name sounds fine. So it is getting dark here, which is a little bit scary, but it should be fine. Bartholomew's a fast horse, and he'll get me home safe. I don't want to have to come back out here. So I'm just trying to get as much as I can. I'm gonna get 2 more, and then we'll have 3 stacks, and then it'll be good. Oh, put that one back. Oh, Bartholomew, come here. Oh, the fireflies have come out. Come back, Bartholomew. Let's go home. So it was this way, if I remember. Alright, we are back at home base, and I'm going to craft up some of this coarse dirt, and then we're going to start laying out the furrows of our field. Yeah, if we make it sort of pointing, not perfectly 45 degrees, but a nice slope like that, I think that'll be good. Or maybe even a more gentle slope than this. If we do 5 inch, that could be nice. We'll start it down at this end, and then a house. I have to build probably a house for this as well. We'll probably put it maybe over there somewhere, but we'll worry about that later. Alright, so this is just a little voiceover to explain some more of the details around medieval farming and the processes that relate to it. So the first step to farming every year is obviously plowing the field. And I think I've said this before, but my fields that I have are pretty inaccurate in terms of scale. This new field that I'm actively, as you can see, I'm building right now, is 85 blocks long and 24 blocks wide, without counting like sort of the halfway sections. You'll see later it's like there's some that don't go the full length. And so with each block being 1 meter in length, that would mean that my field is around 280 blocks or 280 feet long and 80 blocks wide. And now this is pretty different from historical fields. So one parcel of farmland is a cellion is that's the term for it, and it's roughly 1 furlong by 1 chain. And furlongs and chains, you probably don't know how long those are, but a furlong is 660 feet, and a chain is 66 feet. So those measurements are pretty off. It's a lot shorter. It should be 660 feet, but it's only around 280. And it should only be 66 feet, but it's like 80 feet. So the scale is off just because it's hard to replicate scale into Minecraft. But I'm not too concerned with this. Going forward, I guess I'll try harder with fields to make them more accurate, I guess, in terms of ratios, but whatever. Um, Anyways, medieval plowing was primarily done with oxen instead of horses, especially in this time period that I'm playing in the late Anglo-Saxon period around the 10th century. Um, and the main reason for this is that horses couldn't work as long and as hard as oxen. Um, they're weaker, they're less stout animals than oxen, and the horse collar, even though it was invented around the year 920, it wasn't popular too much until around the 13th century. And the horse collar just makes it easier for horses to carry and pull weight. Before, just normal like yokes and that sort of thing will choke and kill a horse. So, but that isn't a problem for cows and oxen. So, for most of history, oxen is what people are using to plow their fields. So, that's what would be done here. Plowing was done with between 1 and 4 pairs of oxen and took up the bulk of work done on a farm. Fields would have to be plowed multiple times a year, depending on the season, in both the spring and the autumn. And fallow fields, which are fields without any crops growing in them, would have to be plowed twice a year to help reset the chemical makeup of the soil, basically turning over any of the weeds and letting them decompose and making it suitable for the next time that the field will be used. After the field was plowed, then something called harrowing was done. Now, harrowing was sort of a recent invention, relatively. It was invented around the same time as a horse collar, in the mid to late Anglo-Saxon period, so, 800, 900. And the purpose of a harrow is to smooth out soil after plowing and break up larger pieces of dirt and soil. And the first depiction of a harrow actually comes from the Bayeux Tapestry, which I've talked about in the last episode. And it shows two men plowing, a man sowing seeds, and then a man on the far right leading a horse with a harrow. And that sort of goes into the next step, which is sowing the seeds. And this is the hardest thing to emulate into Minecraft because sowing seeds is dependent on the weather way more than plowing because you need to sow different seeds for different crops that grow at different times of the year. So during Lent, that was one of the two major times when people would be sowing seeds to grow uh, Lenten crops. You can't, there is no Lent and there is no spring in Minecraft. It doesn't change. It doesn't snow ever. It doesn't change ever. So you can't really get the same effect. Um, but the basics of it is that generally you would sow in the winter, uh, and you would sow in the spring. And I won't get into harvesting here, just because it could be its own video, and I will probably make a video about that. But hopefully this is a good overview for all you guys into medieval farm work. And my representation is far from perfect, mostly because there's like so much more that I need to make, and I need to make so many more fields and meadows and roads and fences and barns and whatever else. So there's plenty of work left to do. You guys would not believe it. I My screen recorder again was not working for a portion of what I was recording, so I lost some footage, and it was kind of important footage of me building. Um, so that's a bummer. But I'll just go over what I was talking about. I need to make some finishing touches anyway, and maybe you can see it. There is my new granary. So let's talk about this since, well, I did, but it got deleted. Well, it didn't. It's hard to explain. But here's the new granary. And so, as I said, this is a staddle stone granary, but it's not actually stone. It's just a staddle granary, and that's what these things are. I have 6 staddles supporting this building and making it not on the ground. Now you might be thinking, what is the purpose of this? Well, essentially, if you build a place that stores all of your grains directly on the ground, water will damage it, and it's very easy for mice and little rats and whatever else to break in and eat up all of your grain. But when you build it elevated like this, and I can actually go under here and show you, it is elevated. It's only these corners, and I have these little wood supports down here too. But this protects it from the wet and the animals. So I'm just gonna go in here and put a big pile of wheat, just to represent, grain in here. And then we're going to build some storage. So I have a few different ways to store. So I mean, there is just physically storage like this, but I also have something pretty neat, is pots. And you can break these, but you can fill them each with a stack of blocks. So I'm going to, well, how do I want to do this? I think I'm going to build a little shelf that has some pots on it. And so I can store a stack of wheat. If I need to get a stack of wheat really quick, I can just break it and go about my day. And pots like this would surely have been used to store so many things. Pots are, they're pots. They're so useful for so many different things. So if I just have, oopsies. If I just have a little shelf here, and I can, that's sort of interesting. Oh yeah, I can just stack them. I don't need to do a frame for that. I can just put some more up there, put some on the floor down here. Whoopsies. They're kind of tricky to work with, but there we go. There's a big stack of pots. And then we'll just put one right there too. Why not? If I just click this, it's taking all this wheat and putting it inside there. I don't know if there's a quicker way to put the wheat actually in there, because you have to manually click all of it. But there we go. This pot is now filled with wheat. I'm also going to make a little, how do I want to do this? We'll put some chests right here, a big double chest, as well as, actually, no, here's what we'll do. Sorry, I'm just sort of doing this on the spot here. We're gonna put 2 barrels in here and a chest on top. And then put a chest up there. We could do some sort of overhead storage. I have a single candle up here to light it up. Well, I guess it's 4 candles, but a single source of light in here. But yeah, we could definitely put some barrels up there. That's sort of odd how that is, but that's okay. Actually, yeah, we're gonna change that. No, it's I want it to be like sideways. There we go. Some barrels above the door. And I have these fences, and I wonder if I can use them in an interesting way. We could make it. Oh, we could know what we could do. Is if we make it sort of like a screen back here, like it's storing the wheat behind a screen. You know, like how animals do that. I mean, in animal pens, it's like that all the time. So if we put a screen up here, yeah. That, and then we can put all sorts of wheat back up in here. So it kind of looks like, and oh, if I have more, I don't have any more spruce wood, but we can just put this screen back up in there, and then we can have two little chests right there, and I have two more chests, and I'll put them right there, and, well, I don't want to cover that one. Well, actually, yeah, this barrel in here is sort of trapped. That's okay. Long-term storage. We could put it up there. Yeah, so as you guys can see, all this wheat has already grown. I mean, there's a few little stragglers, but I probably won't harvest all of it. I'll harvest these first three rows here, just to get myself going with some seed storage and wheat storage. That's a, and then no, we'll fill this with seeds. All right, so now wheat is gonna be all up in here. Just move that around a little so I don't have very much right now. And then seeds. Seeds are gonna use so much more storage, but I think I'm just gonna build a wholly separate building for seeds eventually, right next door. So I shouldn't have to worry about that. Oh. And then let's just get this last one here. There's another thing that I was talking about that I won't be able to use about the roof of this building. Now, if you see, it's sort of an irregular shape. Usually you either have a roof that comes to a point, like I have with the church over there, where on one end it just goes straight up and comes to a point that is flush with the rest of the wall, or you have one that goes in and forms sort of a diamond shape, like the one I have on my house over there. Now this is a mix between the two. This is called a half-hip roof, and there are actually two types of half-hip roofs. One where it starts flat with the wall and then becomes a hip. That's called a hip, where it goes in like that is called a hip. Let me actually see if I can get a better angle. So yeah, this is a half-hip roof. So a hip is this top part, or like my house, where it's essentially a pyramid, you know, a pyramid-shaped roof. And then a gable roof is where there's a triangle on one end, like, you know, like a normal roof shape. If you draw a house, it'll have a gable, you know. Now, half-hip roofs are a combination of both of these types of roofs, where it starts with a gable. So this section that you see here, this is still the gable of the roof. But then above that, it starts going in, and that's the hip. So it's a half-hip roof, and there's types of roofs where it's the opposite, where it goes in first and then comes to a point with a gable differently, and that's common in well, Japanese architecture is where you'd be familiar with that, like a normal sort of, you know, Japanese sort of temple has that sort of look. But that also exists, of course, in the Western tradition of architecture. But so yeah, that's what this type of roof is, and this is common in Europe. If you look at Bruegel's Netherlandish Proverbs painting, the biggest house on there has a roof like this, and so this is a common type of roof for a building. And the sun sets on another hard-working day here. So that's about it for this episode. Actually, while I'm here, let me grab some wheat for some bread, and this will tie in to my next planned episode. This episode, we built our new field, and we built our granary to store our new wheat. But in order to be able to use that wheat for anything, we need to be able to process it. And the steps to process wheat, first and foremost, the most important is milling. We need to be able to mill all of this wheat, because in Minecraft you just take just straight wheat from the ground and just put 3 in a row and it turns into bread. But that is not so in the real world. The process for turning wheat into usable grain is you harvest it, you thresh it, which gets rid of the chaff, and then you have the kernels of grain, and then you use a mill and turn it into flour, and then it becomes usable and you can make bread. But I don't have a mill. So I have these big fields and I have a place to store it, but I don't have a mill. So next episode, we're going to be building a mill over there on the river, a water-powered mill. There are smaller types of mills, like domestic mills called querns, but they're kind of hard to replicate in Minecraft just because of the nature of the game. You can't get a lot of detail in one block by one block things, so I can't really build that. And there are windmills later in history, but at this period windmills aren't really popular, at least in England and Northwest Europe, in that area. They've been used in some form for thousands of years. Ancient Persia, I believe, invented the windmill, but those come along later in Europe. So I will be building a water mill, and mills are used for all sorts of things. Check out my Portage County water documentary if you want to learn more about the applications of mills and the history of mills in Portage County, Ohio. But we'll talk more about mills in the next episode. That is about it for this episode of Pedantic Craft, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It should be a little bit shorter than the last episode, but yeah, I think this is turning out to be a pretty good series. And also next episode, maybe should I give it a little? Well, yeah, I think we'll expand the church a little bit and maybe make it a little longer, or give it a tower out front. So look forward to that as well. But thank you for watching, and this has been Ted's Got Rhythm, Pedantic Craft. All right, bye.